Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. We caught up earlier today with Scott Treblecock, CEO of Core Mining, and we talk permits, plans and portfolio. And if you want our thoughts on the conversation, their plans for next year and indeed the company itself, you can find that at cruxinvestor.com/club. You can also find detailed company reports on there. There are training videos to help you do a little bit more analysis, a commentary from experts from around the world on a variety of companies and commodities. And of course, there are summaries of other interviews that we've done to save you a little bit of time. And do go and join our thriving community of investors sharing their thoughts and ideas with each other in a nice, friendly, safe environment without the old trolling and abuse. You'll love it. That's cruxinvestor.com/club. And we'd love your feedback too. So do give us a like, leave your comments below. And if you want to see what we talked about, take a look in the description below. Hey, Scott, how you doing, sir?
Excellent.
Fantastic. Not too bad. I can see you're at the Imperial Gold Hotel there. How are things?
I am. Yes, I've used virtual reality to escape rainy Vancouver and go down to magically down to California.
Beautiful. Wouldn't you love to be able to do that? There's a company I'd invest in. So how have things been? You been good?
Yeah, it's been excellent. We've been inside Core. We've been incredibly busy, and we've been safe in the face of COVID in the organization and managed to keep working. So it's been great.
Yeah, a lot of press releases, which is why we called. Okay, so we're gonna have a little catch up about what you've been up to and plans for next year. So, but first of all, for people new to the story, give them that 1 minute overview, and we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, so Core is a gold developer in the United States. We have two great assets in California, and we've also got a great exploration project up in British Columbia. We've raised financing from Eric Sprott to work that portfolio in 2020, and I think we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, it's certainly been a big news flow. Lot of activity, it seems. Let's start with the California assets first, if you don't mind, because I think last time we spoke, we talked about your portfolio approach to give you optionality and to make some decisions. And I think obviously with a bit more time and a lot more work, you're at that point where you're going to start making those decisions. But remind people what you've got, the two projects in California. Yeah,
great. So over my shoulder here, you can see the office for our. I guess you call it the flagship Imperial project. It's for sure the most advanced project in the company. We did a PEA earlier this year, but because of the history of the project with a lot of technical work, the board was confident moving that project immediately into the permitting process. So we're working on mine permitting currently on that project while we're looking at also the great exploration we have around it to keep a robust story going. Then the second asset is a simple heap leach project in Central California called Long Valley. We did a PEA earlier this year on that, shows some really nice economics, but it's a very traditional staged PEA, needs more technical work, got to do more drilling, advance the mine plan and confidence in the project before taking it into that next development step. So we've got a nice pipeline of development projects in the United States.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's come back to Imperial, okay, because it is the flagship. You're kind of going to skip a few stages because you think you've got enough data to do that. So getting into permitting is great. So and it's California, okay. People looking at this could think, oh, California, problematic, not mining friendly. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, no doubt. So we are on federal land in California. So the regulatory framework and process is the same as you'd be in Arizona or Idaho, and even in Nevada. Now, would you rather be in Nevada and right next to Elko and in a place that's very, very, very mining friendly? Yes, but even in Nevada, the process to go through permitting is the same you're going to face here in California. So it all comes down to, quite frankly, like anywhere in the world, about local political support. If you get a local community and county, particularly, that's the most important entity in California, that is supportive of the project, and they don't throw up roadblocks in front of the BLM and moving through the permitting process, you can move through the permitting process in California and develop gold mines. This project is located 9 miles from Mesquite. It's a large operating gold mine, been there for 25 years. Got a very good reputation in the community, and it's not going to be there much longer. So locals are worried about job loss, but they're also comfortable because they've been living next to a mine for, ever.
Right. Okay. So there's history, there's track record. Have you engaged with the local community? Have you had to, or are you waiting for the permits to process it?
No, exactly. You got to get out in front of that early. And in fact, the bulk of the team working out of this office over my shoulder is, let's see, there's 5 full-time staff, and the only technical person is our COO. It is all about government and community relations. And we have been, growing our brand in the community. And we've had over 200 meetings, even in the face of COVID, a lot of them by Zoom, with everybody from the congressperson and senator for the area, right down to every local mayor in the small towns here, the local religious and the business organizations. And, I think we've make sure we get our message out there first about what we're trying to do and the value we're trying to bring to Imperial County.
Okay, so that project, you're talking about 146,000 ounces a year. Is a relatively low AISC involved with that too. It's relatively low capex, quite frankly. So it's kind of got a lot of the moving parts that you want. So your board's certainty around permitting is one thing, and you're telling a good story about engagement there. But the questions that have been sent in here around, what's the timeline? When does this thing get to the point where it can make a construction decision? When do you start having conversations about funding? When do you get into production? That whole line. How many more shortcuts can you take to get into production?
Yeah, that's sort of the part, the good and the bad of the system in the US. You can't really take shortcuts. So we're not trying to shortcut anything. Like, you're going to be on a 2 to 3 year BLM timeline, just like you'd be in Nevada to get what's called a record of decision, which is effectively the federal government saying, yes, you can use this federal land for mining. You then backstop that with local permits around reclamation, particularly Imperial County. Dust is a big issue from all the agriculture in the area, and being dry, it blows up in the air. So you're going to have, your probably biggest ride here is going to be getting your permit from the local dust monitoring board.
That's
where you
thing.
get like caps on how much dust you can produce. And in fact, that's the limiting factor for Mesquite, is actually their dust permit of all things. So, I think we're 2 to 3 years from a BLM decision. You got another year to put all the bells and whistles on your local permits. And we're already talking to all those agencies. In the meantime, the plan is to explore and try and find more on the exploration property to fill in the gaps in excitement, quite frankly, at least for the external market, as you march through that process. And I think when you're looking to invest in core, and what we look at for deploying capital, is there risk reward for the time frame to go through that process, and we believe there is.
Okay, that's interesting, because you've got an 8-year life of mine. You're going to need exploration to again, in the market, they think in numbers. They think in 10-year life of mine minimum. They think you need 1 million ounces. All of this kind of arbitrary numbers which people throw around, right? Okay, so you're going to need to do a lot more exploration to kind of make, say, fill in the excitement void. Where's the money come from?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I think we're going into a good gold cycle here, and a gold cycle not being the gold price next month or even next quarter. That the gold companies are in a period of gold price where they're going to make high returns. They're going to start competing for capital. They're going to attract higher and higher valuations. They're then forced to look at growth, and the trickle down ends up being they eventually start buying and doing takeovers and buying growth and other growth projects. And we would like to be on that menu. So where do we kind of fit in that world? And I think on that basis, people will be putting speculative capital into companies like Core. So we'd expect to go to market to raise money. Our strategy to date has only been to raise money to meet a milestone or to do something we know we can do. So I bought deals I turned down 6 and 12 months ago with warrants. I could have loaded up on capital I didn't need and be sitting on the money now. But when I get a permit and I'm looking at a 50 pad permit and I want to drill 10,000 meters, I'm going to go to the market and say, I got a good use for this. This is what I think I can accomplish, and I'll raise the capital at that point. The other thing that Core is looking at strategic investments. So while, most of the mining companies came into our peers, in the low point of the market, I do think there's a strong case, and there is sort of some growing interest in, companies like to think of putting their foot on the company. We think about it bringing in skills and capital. So, we are looking at bringing in a strategic investment, at the corporate equity level into the company. So we are pursuing a few different pathways for to bring capital in.
Okay, and I guess that question is probably a little bit early, because in the context of some of the other projects that you've got going on, we might come back to that. But how much money do you think you would need to allocate at Imperial over the next 3 or so years, 2-3 years, to kind of fill in that gap? Because what do you think it needs to look like for an outsider to be coming in and going, hey, this is starting to look interesting for us. This your Californian assets. We like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, it's whether the core will either de-risk the project to the point where we can finance and build it, or de-risk it to the point where someone will buy it. And their risk tolerance will either come down to match our risk de-risking, or our risk de-risking the project will go up, but somewhere we'll meet in the middle. I don't know when that is. So your question is very germane, is what will we do in the company to make those systematic de-riskings and to deploy capital over time to create value in the asset that someone either ends up being a producer in core or is acquired by somebody. So the direct answer to your question, the actual team that it takes to permit, do the EIS, drill, complete a feasibility study, and be sitting there with all the sort of work done in your hands where you can finance to construction. We've got some estimates that you could do a lot more drilling. It's probably 20 million US.
Okay.
To go through that full period of time. That's over the 3 to 4 year period. We'd like to do exploration drilling of some significance in addition to that, but you don't need to raise all that capital in one shot. There are some milestones along the way, getting your plan of operations in place, getting a memorandum of understanding which is basically starting your EIS for the mine, which is kind of fixes the timeline for the BLM and sort of more certainty, kind of what you've seen at Integra Gold up in Idaho. So I think we'll raise capital in chunks to meet milestones going along the path here.
Yeah, it's interesting planning the process here, and listen, when you take capital in, because you've got optionalities of moving that exploration. You're starting now, we're moving it down further down the process when you sort of get a bit more sight of when you'll be in production. It's nice problem to have. Let's talk a little bit about Long Valley, because I think the two projects together is probably what the company will look like going forward, because I know you've talked about spin-outs of BC assets, etc. So Long Valley, again, also got a PEA, 100,000 ounces a year, also sort of 7-year life of mine here, and again, relatively lowish capex in the context of things. So, but the IRRs for both look great. So you've got a similar set of problems, similar assets in many ways, both open pit, etc. So when you look at those assets, in fact, when other people look at those assets, I mean, do they think that you're going to take this thing into production? Is that realistic?
I mean, it's realistic. Simply, I think, you kind of said the characteristics. So we've got a chief operating officer, Mark Leduc, who's built multiple of these mines. He got Castle Mountain permitted in California for Equinox. It just completed construction. They're pretty keen through their messaging to actually do the expansion. So, I mean, there's an example of a heap leach project going ahead, getting built, getting into production, and expanding in California. There's kind of another example. We've got the guy who did that project, running our project. So we're perfectly capable of over time building the organization. This is not some complex mining method. This is a gravel pit with a heap leach pad. There's not even a crusher. So kind of doesn't get much simpler. So we could easily get the skills to build and deliver the project. It's what happens down the path. If a corporate comes along and wants to pay an appropriate price, given how much de-risking and capital we've deployed, so be it. So do people believe one way or another? No, I think it comes down to, how far will they get?
So like an appropriate buyer, like an Equinox, who've got a similar operation in the same state.
Yeah. That certainly there'd be speculation that would be a logical acquirer, but we are setting up Imperial, particularly with this great exploration play around it and kind of controlling the whole district right up to Mesquite's door. I think any standalone company can come in and build it in pretty similar economic and risk levels as Equinox. Okay,
so and again with this, you said it's slightly more complicated in that you've got a slightly less technical data at the moment, so it's going to follow a more conventional approach to moving it through.
Correct. We're currently permitting a drill program, kind of as our first test of permitting and understanding the regulators with the federal agency, the U.S. Forest Service. So we're pretty late in that process. We've got some good indications. They've made some decisions around, the decisions they have to make to how much environmental assessment work and they're going to do. So we look like we're going to get a permit in Q1 for drilling at that project. So there it is about, we've got some really nice near mine step outs to grow more oxide, because I don't see the production going much over the 100,000 in the PEA. But we think we've got good line of sight to increasing the mine life just by adding more near surface mineralization, growing the size of the resource on surface. And then we'll probably test for some underground grades sort of in what they call the boiling zone of this epithermal deposit deep down, trying to find some spectacular results in the sulfides, because you'd need that, quite frankly, to make it economic. So there's sort of two purposes of the drilling we would do. And then obviously you would probably do a bigger campaign of whatever you found to resource it, and then either do an updated PA or PFS. And at that point, you'd have a better idea of the risk to whether you'd, propose a mine, or traditionally go then do more work and do a feasibility study.
Right. Okay. So let's park those for now. We'll come back because there's a lot of moving parts here. So let's park California for now. Let's move up to BC. So BC, I saw a press release, you talking about potentially, I'm sure you got lots of options, but the release talked about spin out there. And I was just wondering, because I pushed you hard on this portfolio approach that you had when we spoke in end of July, right? Because I at some point you got to become a big boy and you got to make some choices and you got to focus, because
Correct.
Where the money
we agree.
is, right?
Yeah.
So when have you started that process of making those decisions? When do you make those sorts of announcements? So the shape of the company going forward?
Yeah. So I think it'll be very soon. We announced, I don't know, about a month ago now, that the board had authorized management to pursue and, quite frankly, spend the money to look at all the options and prepare for spinning out our British Columbia assets, which, it's 1,000 kilometers of claims in the Caribou district, right next to a Cisco Development Corp's project that they're pushing really hard. And on the back of the success we feel we've had at the FG Gold drilling, which has been ongoing for the better part of this year. So I think some of those investments we made in that portfolio approach early this year have sort of given us a strong idea of what that asset is. And through both staking and exploration and circumstance of Development Corp, I think it's created a situation where we believe we've got a really good standalone exploration story. And as a result, the board said, hey, go do all the prep work to look at a spin out of that. And if we can do it on a tax-free basis to shareholders, and there's a pathway to get there, I likely will pull the trigger in the middle of this month. And we'd like to, if we can, get the company split and into our shareholders' hands in January.
Right. Okay. And so it's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it? Because someone's going to need to run that. So it's going to take someone else's time and attention. So you're going to have that team set up to go. You're going to have to go to the markets, get some capital. And is that the decision? Spin out, or does someone else come along and just take it off your hands, do a farm out to them? I mean, what are the options you're thinking there? Because this isn't about the immediate money in the back pocket per se for you. This is about focus on what's important. So this is you're trying to remove a distraction in a way, but create some value for at some point in the near or distant future, right? So what are the options you went through?
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are, M&A options. You're kind of surrounding and have some good exploration ground around Spanish Mountain, which is right next door. I know Eric Sprott's put some money into that, and they, are trying to revive that sort of development story. You've got this greenfield exploration. So there certainly are some M&A opportunities. You can go and approach development. Maybe they want to go even bigger in the district and all those type of things. That's sort of putting your fate in a third party, which in my
doesn't always work out.
Kicking tires at Nevsun was sort of tells me that I would rather rely on our own timelines.
Yeah.
So we've really come down to, is there a good way to deliver this company to our shareholders so that they can benefit from the attributes of that? And the attributes of that are its exploration. So you need a big risk reward equation to invest that capital. as opposed to think what you want about California, but we're in a very different risk reward scenario, developing in the United States as we are, exploring in BC. So I think that risk reward requires separate entities raising separate capital, developing different share registers over time. And, we don't have a lot of institutions in core right now that are going to say, but I don't want that little Explorco thing. So, that's a problem. I think it's a good time, both from a capital structure perspective and a markets perspective, to get that company trading separately. Now, where does it go from there? Does it merge, get taken over? I hope it's as aggressive as Core's been entrepreneurially to create value for the shareholder base that will start as Core's and grow from there.
I mean, the interesting thing is the timing of this. Obviously, we've had a fantastic 18 months in terms of precious metal pricing. Great, lovely. Mm-hmm. But people are dusting off the old pieces of, better watch my language here, dusting off a lot of old assets, which perhaps have seen better days or have been, not worked on the previous 2 or 3 occasions for a reason. So, but the point is, whether your asset's good or bad, there's a lot of white noise out there, and trying to get noticed when all of that white noise is out there, it can be tough. So you're going to have to come at this with, real thought as to how you stand out and how you fit in.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We were talking about this in the pre-call. There's however many number, I don't even know, 300, junior TSX listed junior gold companies, all kind of telling the same story. So you really do have to differentiate to attract capital. And, on the flip side, other than the sort of, craziness of the occasional burst of bought deals that you see like happened in the spring, I give credit to investors. They're smart. If you put together a good story and you deliver on your objectives, I think you can attract capital. And as more capital flows into this sector, there's still lots of room for a wide variety of companies. And we think we've got a good differentiated story in the Caribou because of the scale of the project, the success in 2020, and and because of development, Cisco Development's rise in the district.
Right. Okay. So I think it's fair to say we will sit, or you'll soon be able to park up, in terms of mentally park up the BC assets in one way, shape, or form. Could be a benefit to your current shareholders if you just spin out, or other options that I'm sure you're keeping on the table for now. So it's happening real soon. So back to California with 2 assets, very similar stages, similar profiles. Are you tempted to? I've talked about you being a target. Are you tempted to look at targets? You've got Eric Sprott on board after all.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to your question, there is an element of management distraction and dilution of capital allocation that I'm reluctant to bring more assets in the company. We need to focus and deliver milestones at Imperial. I think we've got a team that's now been together and on the ground, in this office for 4 months. The team's been together for about 6. Mark's been in the project now for over a year. I think they got a really good handle on how to deliver some of those milestones. And certainly they've learned everything they need to as far as getting ramped up on the project. So yeah, I'd be reluctant to dilute their attention by bringing more into the company. I think they got more than enough opportunity as it is.
Good. Okay. Nate, management has 38%. Eric Sprott's got 26%. It's really tightly held. Your G&A is good. You're not spending money unnecessarily. You got a bunch of Eric Sprott's cash and other people's cash at the moment. What are you going to be doing with it in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, primarily it's making sure that this team working in this office over my shoulder, delivers on the ground. We call it the coalition of support. So it's building political support on the ground, in the county, and that involves a whole wide variety of things. I'm very impressed with our head of government affairs down there. He was part of 2 major projects that got permitted in this county in the past. So he's very well connected and, keeping driving that stuff. And that primarily involves dealing with the BLM. Like the BLM office has been closed on and off because of COVID. It's been challenging communicating with them. And we got to make sure nothing else slips and we start just, running like a machine down there. So that's primary objective number 1. Objective number 2 would be to get out and start drilling. And we got 2 large drill programs in permitting, one at Imperial and one at Long Valley. Whichever one comes first will get the drill, and that'll get the exploration team active. And the third objective is we're going to make this company more and more American. As you get rid of BC, we're going to, look at some, obviously, I think you're going to make some changes at the boards, bring in some more American talent, some political connectivity, get as much of the admin overhead and work happening here in Imperial County in the US, because ultimately this is going to be an American gold company, and it needs the skills and money being spent locally.
Okay, interesting. Obviously, you're not going to go for an NYSE listing; it's too expensive. But
yeah.
But that's interesting. You want it to be more American. Okay, I look forward to seeing what that means for you. So drills will start turning once permits arrive on a first come first served basis. So you've got one drill. Does that mean you're going to need to find another? Is that what you're saying?
That's going to be availability of capital, right? Like if markets are good and our share prices perform, people are recognizing the value creation potential of these assets. We will have permits once those 2 projects get permitted to drill for several years. We got 150 pads in Imperial County. You could do 50,000 meters on that easily. We could do probably up to 15,000 meters in Long Valley. We don't need to do all that right away. So it's going to be a availability of capital. We'll start with 1 at Long Valley. It's not the place you can roll out 10 drills and do the big splash story. I think you want to be pedantic about exploration and hit targets. But I could see 2 drills with the good markets turning by the summer.
So how much cash have you got today then? How much is left?
7.5 million Canadian.
Right. Okay.
Give or take. So we got about $1 million to finish up all the assaying and drilling. There's still a drill turning in BC. Actually, they're going to be closing up for Christmas and then demobbing in the next couple of weeks here. Mm-hmm. They have to the core has to be cut and assayed and demobbed. So that's about $1 million, and the rest is just funding that team in Imperial County, getting all these things in place for 2021.
Right. Okay. So you don't need to rush out to the markets anytime soon, is what I'm hearing, because you have no timeline on the permits yet. It's just be soon. Correct. Do you think soon is less than 6 months?
Yeah. For Long Valley, almost for sure. Simply because of when it started. I mean, it started we put in I think they formally accepted the application like July. So that's going to be a 9 or 10 month process to get a drill permit. That's surprisingly not untypical in the United States. And then we'd expect by middle of the year, call it, let's say June, July, we'd be permitted at Imperial. And that program will give us runway for a couple of years of drilling. So at that point, we're going to have lots of flexibility about turning on and off drilling, depend on capital markets. So,
okay.
I'd like to think that we get into a good gold market here in the new year, and we can raise some money in Q2 maybe to fund that drilling on the back of a permit. Okay,
so you painted a real clear picture for me today. So you've told us how long you think it will take to at Imperial. Is Long Valley following the same sort of timeline? Is it just going to take a little bit longer because you've got a few more steps to jump? Hoops to jump through?
I'd put it sort of 2 years behind.
2 years behind.
Truly,
okay.
If you were building up capabilities, you'd start in the years ahead thinking about, okay, when they finish building that one, they're going to move up and build that one up there. And 2 years is just that real PEA stage of Long Valley. You need to do some more met testing, as you infill drill some of these hopefully new step out discoveries, and again, try and get it up to 1.5 to 2 million ounces in the mine plan, and just make it that much better to make a construction decision.
Right. So
a permitting decision.
Permitting decision. Yeah, of course. So I'm just trying to think. I know the drill bit's going to have to deliver the excitement. You're going to have to raise money to do that. So it's going to be dilution for the next couple of years, but at the same time, you're hoping to move that further along the curve, increase the number of ounces. And is this going to be an ounces in the ground story from here? Is it? Because the numbers, the economics possibly won't change too much from the PEA, will they?
No, not for some time. Like, we've not allocated infill drill dollars, which can get expensive. Now, Long Valley is very shallow, and you're going to use RC drilling, so you can put a lot of meters in relatively cheaply to add ounces. But I mean, I see it as a NAV story. So it's going to be how excited the analysts get about, right now they've got very, very conservative timeline and dilution numbers in their NAVs, and we still look like a reasonable PNAV. You look at core mark or PI's coverage, as they, tighten up the, fundraising assumptions and start adding more and more of that blue sky, it gives you that valuation creation potential, like you see some of our peers go on runs. I know there's several names in the gold development sector that have had great success getting to the $300 to $500 million market cap on assets that, quite frankly, are smaller and less advanced than the Imperial. But I think you got to create that excitement of blue sky upside, and that really drives interest, particularly from the analysts.
Okay. Well, fine. Thanks very much for the update. Good to hear from you. Always great to speak to you, Scott.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. I love the strategic line of questioning. It's so important for companies to actually have strategy.
You'd be surprised.
I did. I was not throwing darts at my competitors, but let me just.
Right. Well, look. Stay in touch. Sounds like there's a few things going to be happening in Q1. Let us know how you get on with your Americanization process, and more importantly, permitting. Okay. Speak to you soon.
Always a pleasure. Have a happy holidays.